Okay, so we're on to the bass, the part that you have all been waiting for. We're going to put in some notes onto, we're going to go with, I'm going to use Syelenth. Now you can use whatever VST you like, and if you don't have a VST, that's okay, no problem. There are a lot of free ones around, but if you haven't quite done that step yet, Ableton does have some sounds built into it, which are the same thing. They're just not as good, but you can still make some cool sounds with them. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag an operator over here, and then this is going to be our synthesizer to create the sound. Okay, so we've got a MIDI track here as opposed to our audio track, which is playing our audio signal. So the MIDI needs to be told what to do. The audio doesn't. You just drag the audio in and then that's done. The MIDI, without any instructions, the synthesizer doesn't know what to do. So the way we put in the MIDI instructions is by highlighting for our 8 bars and then right clicking, going insert MIDI clip. So we've got this bar here. I might just label our operator bass, so Control R. That's our bass, and I'm also going to Control R to label the MIDI clip as well. Okay, so double click on the MIDI bar that we've now made, not mini bar, the MIDI bar, and you can see here that we've got a grid. Now this is essentially what producing is famous for. This grid here. You'll see it in all different doors. I don't mean door that you open, I mean DAW, a term thrown around a lot in music producing, which stands for Digital Audio Workstation. So that's Ableton. Whether you're using Logic or Fruity Loops, or it really doesn't matter. You can write all the same kinds of music with any of them. They all have pros and cons. They all cost a little bit different, but some are better for live performance. Some are cheaper. Some are there's pros and cons, but anyway, we need to put in our bass sound. So what I'm going to get you to do, so you can hear the MIDI instructions through the synthesizer, is to turn on this little blue headphone, and that means that when you put in notes, you're going to hear it like so. Okay? If that's really annoying you, then you can just turn it off, and then that means when you put in notes, you won't hear it. I'm going to turn it on because I like to hear what I'm putting in. And we're going to put in a bass note that goes for, there's our beats. If you get a little bit lost in the grid, just hit spacebar, and that's automatically going to start playing the song that you're writing. So if you're not quite sure what a beat is, so that looks like a beat. So I'm just going to put in a few there. And let's hit play on that, see what it sounds like. Cool, not exactly rockin', but anyway, we're getting there. Let's put it a little lower, so you can just highlight them all and arrow down. Alright. C2, yeah, we kind of want to go lower than that. Let's just have a look on an EQ8, which is that thing I was using before, which is showing us where the harmonics and where basically the pitches of the instrument that we're using. So it looks like we're here. Now we could almost go one lower, almost. Let's see. Is it a bit too low? Let's have a look. It is our bass after all. That is very, very subby. As long as you have this bass note the same as what your kick is, so I'm going to put mine to G. If your kick is A, have this bass note to A. As long as they're the same, it doesn't really matter. Now I'm just going to, so I highlighted them, and if you press Control and D, that's going to save you a lot of time by putting in all the instructions. So now we've just got a bass that's just basically playing crotchets. So let's have a listen. Okay, so it's a start. I reckon that doesn't sound very good. So what we're going to do is we're going to put an offbeat bass. So what I might do is if you press on here and then go Control and A, it will highlight all the notes. And then see this little doobie that's coming up there. If you have it facing backwards and then you drag, you can make all the notes shorter, which is pretty handy. Now I'm going to make them shorter and I'm going to drag them so that they're off beats. Oop, still on beats. Let's go Control A. Now they're off beats. So that's sounding a little more disco-y. Now I was just noticing that we're redlining on the master, which is not so good. Redlining is not good. That means that all these sounds in your arrangement here, they end up going through a master, and then the master is basically the signal that gets put out to the speakers. If your master is going red, it means that the speakers are going to be distorting, which is not good. So what we need to do, it's because our kick is so loud. This kick here, if I turn that up even slightly, look, you'll see it redline. See? Ooh, nasty. So click on this here and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's just a general standard that when you're producing, you want to start with a kick at -6, and that way that leaves you headroom. That's a good term to remember. Headroom for all your other instruments, so that by the time you add all your other instruments, if your kick is at -6, then plus all the other instruments, then your master hopefully is going to be, at around -1 to 0 dB. That's decibels, which is good. That's what you want, because you don't want it softer, because then it's less exciting, but you don't want it too loud, because then it distorts. So -6 for the kick. Always do that. Always start your kicks off at -6. That's a good rule of thumb. Now this isn't actually a volume measurer. It's just it's essentially just a volume knob. If you want to actually measure how loud this kick is, press Tab and get that out of the way. And you can see here we've got some volumes coming up. So our bass is at -12 dB and our kick is at 6. This, by the way, this blue one is solo. I've used that quite a few times already. So if you just want to hear one track, just press the S, and that's the bass, and that's the kick. Okay, you can hold Control and solo 2 tracks at the same time, which is useful if you have an entire arrangement. You just want to hear 2 tracks, but we only have 2 tracks, so that's not really useful at the moment. But anyway. Our bass isn't playing at the same time as the kick, which is kind of handy. We can't really tell that at the moment, so what I'm going to do is press this arrow, and there we can see the instructions that that is being sent to our bass synthesizer, the operator. Now operator's okay, but it doesn't sound amazing, so I'm going to pop this information into my Syelenth and then open up Syelenth and have a look for some, let's have a look for some bass presets that we like. I'm just going to turn off this track. So the way that you do that is by pushing that. It means that the track is no longer going, essentially. So now we're playing with our Syelenth 1. I'll put this as bass operator, just checking spelling. Oh, what are you doing? Control R, bass, Syelenth. Always label your tracks. It gets really confusing. Really confusing. I mean, it's not at the moment, but if you're doing tracks with 15, 20 different instruments, and you haven't labeled, you haven't kept them neat, yeah, good luck when it comes to mixing. It'll just be a massive headache. So label your tracks as you go. Let's have a listen to that now that this bass operator's off. So that's obviously way too low. Let's put it up an octave. That's sounding a bit nicer. Let's have a listen to a few more. Cool. I think I'm going to go with bass, crunchy bass. So that's our bass.